Chapter 3, Part 3, The Missing. We motored through streets in Ali's car, with Dad up front and me perched in the middle of the back seat. Ali talked as she drove. She talked a lot, and in a tone of voice I could only have described as sunshiny. This woman was the most cheerful cop I'd ever met. Finally, Dad interrupted the steady flow of bright chatter to ask, "Did you grow up here?" "I've lived here all my life." "You must have been at school with Alexander Schult and Derek Belding." Ali nodded. "I was, although they were a few years ahead of me, and Alex was at boarding school for a while. He came back to the local school when the money problems started." "I didn't think the Schult family had any money problems." "They don't now, but back then, Oscar Schult, Alex's grandfather, frittered a lot of their fortune away." "Gambling?" She laughed. "No, the apocalypse." Dad blinked. "What?" "Oscar Schult thought the end of the world was nigh. He spent thousands on the most ridiculous things. I heard he'd invested in a colony on the moon. Then he ended up shutting himself away in that old house, the one that became the kids' home later, with a bunch of supplies to wait out the destruction of civilization as we knew it." I leaned forward. So Alexander Schult did have a reason to be tempted to make some illegal cash, at least back while his family had money issues. Dad grunted in acknowledgement and then said to Ali, "How'd they get the money back?" "Alex took over the family finances after his grandpa died and turned it all around. He made a lot of cash in the stock market." I snorted. "Or he made his money selling prescription meds, or, I don't know, getting involved in some other criminal activity." Dad shrugged his shoulders, which meant maybe. Ali prattled on. "Alex has done a lot of good in this town, and a lot for those children through the home. He had a bit of his fight on his hands to get it set up, too." Well, that was interesting. Dad thought so as well. There was some controversy. Some locals didn't want troubled kids on their doorstep. Only some, mind you. Plenty of the town wanted to be part of giving the kids a second chance. Bill Carter was going to teach them horse riding, and Dolly Westerman, she's a retired school teacher, offered to run classes for them, and there were lots of people. April Chang started a sign-up sheet for everyone who wanted to help. She sighed. Then old Sam Finch started a sign-up sheet for people who didn't want the home here. It all got a bit tense. Someone even egged Sam's pub, although there was never any proof that it was Dolly's granddaughter, whatever he said. Anyway, sorry, that's all ancient history now. The home went ahead, but none of us could volunteer there, of course. "Why not?" I demanded, just as Dad asked the same question. "It wasn't allowed. The government has very strict rules about how such places have to be run. No one who wasn't directly employed there was allowed in." "Pity." I looked at Dad. "Are there rules like that?" He gave a tiny shake of his head, and I grinned. "Ha! Schult was trying to keep people away." Ali kept talking, oblivious to my input. I know Alex would have liked to have had the town involved if he could have. He loves this place. It's why he still lives here, even with all his money. I mean, if I had that kind of cash, a rueful smile spread across her face. "Actually, I don't suppose I would leave now." "You would have before?" Dad asked. "When I was a teenager, I couldn't wait to get out. My best friend and I were going to become astronauts because we figured outer space was the furthest way we could get from this place." "So why'd you stay?" The cheerfulness suddenly vanished from Ali's face. "It was because of my friend Sarah. Sarah Blue. She disappeared." "Disappeared?" I choked. "How many people can go missing in one small town?" Dad must have been wondering the same thing. "When was this?" he asked. "Oh, it was a long time ago. 20 years, 7 months, 6 days. Not that I'm counting." She tried to laugh, but it broke in the middle. Sarah just vanished a week before her 15th birthday. She got off the bus from school, same as always, but she never made it home. 20 years. Not related to this case then. Like Ali had said, it was a long time ago. 20 years, 7 months, 6 days. Was Dad going to be like this decades from now when he talked about me? I didn't want him making my death some kind of depressing mathematical reference point for his life. You never found out what happened to her? Dad asked Allie. No. Derek's old man was in charge of the investigation. He was convinced she'd run off. You didn't think so? No, I didn't, and nor did her parents. Sarah might have talked about going away. We both did, but she would never have left her mum and dad without saying goodbye. Allie sighed. They're both dead now. They never did get over losing her. The rest of the family live a long way away. Sarah's parents moved here for work, but I'd really like to be able to tell her family that I've found her one day. You think she's still out there somewhere? I guess that was Dad's nice way of asking if Allie thought Sarah was dead. It's been a long time, she acknowledged, but people have been found before, even after years and years. Derek's always telling me there's no point in searching anymore, but she cast an anxious glance at Dad, clearly worried he was going to agree with Derek. She didn't know my father. We're police officers, he said, and I heard the pride in his voice. We never stop looking for the missing. Allie brightened. I was actually wondering, that is, if you're not too busy, I was thinking I'd be happy to take a look at Sarah's file, Dad told her. She beamed at him. Thank you, she said. Then it's in the glove compartment. I laughed, but she's been carrying that file around ever since she got word that there was going to be a senior detective in town, Dad. He gave a small nod of agreement, reaching for the glove compartment. His eyes were crinkling around the edges the way they did when he was suppressing a smile. He liked the way Allie was fighting for her friend. I edged further forward, trying to get a good look at the file as he glanced through it. After a moment, he took out a photo, holding it up as if he was studying the image, so that I could see it as well. Sarah Blue. She had long black hair, brown skin, and an expression that seemed to dare the world to get in her way. The Aboriginal girl who wanted to go to the stars. Dad put the photo back and closed the file. This all there is? Seems thin for an investigation into a missing kid. You think so too? I tried talking to Jerry Bell about it. He's retired now, but, well, he wasn't very receptive. Derek's always saying his dad did everything he could, and I can understand why he'd defend his father, of course. It's just that she shook her head. Jerry Bell always thought she'd be back any time. Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel, only she never did come back. Do you think any leads can be found now? It won't be easy, Dad warned, but it's not impossible. It might be best to return to the beginning, re-interview everyone the police spoke to initially, and try to identify anyone they missed. I can help you to do it if you'd like, after the investigation into the home is done. A huge grin broke over Allie's face, so bright that it made all her other smiles seem like knockoffs of the genuine article. Small towns can be like lakes. So could the people in them. There was a lot more to Alison Hartley than just the sunshine on the surface, and I was a bit embarrassed that I hadn't seen that right away. I'd have to do better than that if I was going to be a detective like Dad when I finished. Oh, I wasn't going to be a detective like Dad when I finished school. I wasn't going to be anything. It was so stupid, but sometimes I forgot I was dead, probably because I didn't really feel dead, except that before the accident, I'd been a person of the now, always who I was and never who I'd been. But how could I be that butterfly girl when I was only who I'd been, stopped forever at 15 and a half? Unless I moved on to what was next, where had that thought come from? Catching was getting into my head. I scrabbled for other thoughts, comforting thoughts, and found one fast. Okay, joining the police force was out, but I could still learn things, still grow and change. I could still be a butterfly like Mum. I clung to that idea and made it bigger. Maybe Mum would come from wherever she was to find me. Maybe Dad would be able to see her like he could see me. Then we'd be a family together. Something didn't feel right about that, but I ignored the feeling. I'd find Mum and fix Dad, and everything would be okay. The car rounded a corner onto the base of a steep rise. Allie pointed to the crest of the hill. See the house at the top? The big one? That's the Schult place. Alex built it himself. Well, had it built. The house that Schult built was a 2-story red brick property that dwarfed the Weatherbourne homes either side of it and was surrounded by hedges clipped into the shapes of swans. Derek Bell had described it as a bit hard to find. He'd lied. The only instructions anyone would need to locate this house were look for the ugly brick mansion with the pretentious hedges, which meant Bell hadn't sent Allie with us as a guide. He'd wanted someone to keep an eye on Dad, and he'd been expecting Allie to report back on him. Dad had figured it out too. As the car rolled to a halt, he said to Allie, "I'd like to interview Schult alone. I think he'll be more inclined to take this seriously if he's questioned by someone he doesn't know." Allie didn't object. In fact, she seemed relieved. Guess she's in an awkward spot, stuck between her boss and Dad. Now she could truthfully say she'd been left behind and wouldn't have to tell Belle anything. I followed Dad as he strode up to the front door and lifted the heavy brass knocker to rap against the panelled wood. No one came. He just raised his hand to knock again when the door swung back. A thin, white-haired old man at the door clearly wasn't in the best of health. His pale skin was sallow and his hands trembling, but there was absolutely nothing wrong with his ability to glare. Dad held up his identification, ignoring the angry scowl being directed at him. "I need to speak to Alexander Schult. He's not here. Left for the city early this morning." "Are you his father?" The old man gave a short nod. "I'm Charles Schult. What's it to you?" Dad's gaze flicked to me, then the house. I understood. He wanted me to check if Alexander was hiding inside. I darted past old man Schult and began to search, sprinting through the rooms filled with fancy furniture and faded photographs of yet more pale Schult relatives. There was no sign of Alexander on the ground floor, so I headed up a curving staircase. It was all bedrooms on this level, decorated in assorted shades of cream and beige that seemed to merge together as I tore on through. Boring bedroom, another cream bedroom, another... Wait. The curtains in this room were fluttering, stirred by the wind, but the window was closed. Strange. I went over to investigate. There was no glass in the window. The wooden frame was intact, but the glass was gone. I examined the floor beneath it and found some shards. Someone broke in, except there was no balcony. We were a long way off the ground. A person would have to be exceptionally determined to get up here. Maybe it had been broken by something thrown from the ground. A rock? I was about to turn away when I noticed a few strands of hair caught in the window frame. Black hair. An image flashed through my mind of the photo Dad had shown me back at the home. Director Kavanagh had black hair. Had he been here? Was he still here? I spun away from the window and went charging through the rest of the bedrooms. Nothing. Then I went back downstairs and out into the rear garden in case someone was hiding in the manicured shrubbery. Nothing there either. Frustrated, I returned to Dad. He was still talking to Charles Schult, or more accurately, Charles Schult was talking to him, going on about how the police should have better things to do with their time than harass successful businessmen like his son. "No sign of Alexander," I said to Dad, "but there's a broken window upstairs at the back, with strands of black hair caught in the frame. I think Director Kavanagh was here." Dad interrupted the old man's rambling. "I'm afraid I have to leave now, but I really do need to talk to your son." He handed over one of his cards. Please have him contact me as soon as possible." Schult dropped the card onto the floor and shuffled back, letting the door swing shut with a bang. I stared at Dad in confusion. "What do you mean you have to go? You should be searching the house. I couldn't look in drawers or anything. There could be all sorts of incriminating evidence hidden away." Dad glanced back to the car where Allie was watching. He pulled out his phone and brought it to his ear. "Black hair and a smashed window isn't enough, Beth," he said as we walked away from the house. "The window could have been an accident of some kind. The hair could be anyone's. Besides, how could I have known that?" "Oh, I hadn't thought about that." "But don't you think it's suspicious?" "I do, especially combined with the way Alexander Schult seems to be dodging the police. I just can't get a search warrant yet, but I can get people to start looking a lot more closely at the Schult family. He gave me an approving nod. You did good, Beth. I grinned at him. Today had just gone from a good day to a great day. Not only had I helped Dad, I'd done it as a ghost, doing something I couldn't have done while I was alive. Maybe I could be a detective after all. Okay, not exactly in the way I'd imagined it when I was alive, but still. Beth Teller, ghost detective. This could be the start of a whole new future for Dad and me, and Mum too, once I found her. My happy thoughts were interrupted as Allie leapt out of the car and bolted over to us, her phone in her hand and red hair flapping around her face. She skidded to a halt in front of Dad. Her skin was white beneath her freckles, but she kept her voice steady and professional as she said, "They found 2 more bodies. Both of them have been stabbed.